Hello everybody, my name is Emily. I have been reflecting and thinking about all of the books that I read this year. I actually pulled a lot of them off of my shelves, which are now very bare, and I stacked them up into a pile so that I could have a physical image of the books that I read, which I think is really fun to actually see. I wouldn't have thought that it would be this tall, so I kind of feel like that's a little bit of an accomplishment. But anyways, overall, so far I have read 58 books this year. And I've been trying not to focus so much on the quantity of books that I read. But I am really happy with that number. I think that throughout the years that I have been reading, that's the most books that I've ever read in a year. So that's pretty awesome. And then also, according to Goodreads, I have read 17,601 pages, which is kind of mind-blowing to me because I usually think about reading in terms of books and not pages. So it's strange to see that number, but also kind of neat. And then the average length of the books that I did read was 309 pages. So I did read a lot of short books and then a few longer books, and so the number is somewhere in between. I am going to ruin this pile and go through different categories of my reading, and at the end of this video I will share my favorites from 2017, so it's going to be fun to look back at my reading adventures of 2017. I am now back in front of my bookshelves and all the books are back on. It's all put together. And we're going to talk about the favorite books that I did read in 2017. When I was trying to compile the list, as I went through and thought about it, I was able to eliminate options, and now I have it down to 4 favorites. And they're not in an order. I'm actually talking about them in the order that I read them. The first favorite, I have it here, The Once and Future King by T.H. White. This is a retelling of Le Morte d'Arthur by Sir Thomas Malory, told by T.H. White. Now, I have not read that version of the story yet. I hope to get to it. And this was the first book that I've read that had to do with the Arthurian legends. And I loved it. It follows Arthur and his story from the time that he's a child all the way until the last battle that you see him in. One thing that I did notice as I grabbed my books off of the shelf to show you is that my favorite books are the ones that are the most heavily annotated. And I think that there's something to that. I think that these are the books that I read that I thought that I saw a lot of value in, and I've kind of followed along the ideas, and I appreciated the writing. I personally like very character-driven stories, so I liked that attention to detail that you saw in all of the characters. They didn't feel like they were stereotypes or, what's the word, archetypes. They actually felt like people. So I appreciated that about this book. It analyzed war and its impacts on society, and then also the causes. you kind of see throughout the entire book that that's something that Arthur is trying to understand. And Merlin begins that learning in his education in the first story, but it does continue throughout. This is a book that I really enjoyed reading, and I know that it will be a favorite. Not just from 2017, but further on. And then the other book that I really loved was Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. And this was my first time reading anything by Emily Bronte. And one thing that I will say is I loved the way that she wrote. And the way that she writes about emotion, it's done in a very powerful way. This is still a book that has this powerful, I don't even know how to explain it, but there's something about it. There's a quality that it just does stick with you. And I think that those are the books that tend to be the most memorable to people, and the ones that people tend to call favorites, the ones that they continue to think about after they read. And that is certainly something that I found with this book. And then the third book that I listened to on audiobook was The Age of Miracles by Karen Thompson Walker. It takes place in America, in California, and you're watching the story unfold in first person through the eyes of a child. And what happens is there is a disaster. The rotation between the earth and the sun slows down. And that alters daylight and nighttime. And I loved seeing the events take place through the eyes of the protagonist because she was very observant and she had a lot to say and to comment on what was happening. And another thing that I really appreciated about this book is that it looks at how this event impacts the household, but it also looks at a larger scale at society. And I thought that was really cool. And then the final book that is definitely a favorite from 2017, I have it written down because it's quite a long title. As You Wish, The Inconceivable Tales from the Making of the Princess Bride. I think it was by Cary Elwes. I don't know how to say his name. But he played Wesley in the movie Princess Bride. And this was an audiobook. And basically, the actor was reflecting on his experience of making the movie. And he was also interviewing a lot of people that were very integral to that process, and a lot of the actors that were in the movie with him. If you are someone who loves the movie The Princess Bride, I know I love both the movie and the book. This is such a fun book to read. I listened to the audiobook, and that actually ended up being a really fun way to hear it because the writer narrates it, but he also has all of the people that he interviewed. So you're hearing all of these voices of these characters that you know from the movie telling their own stories. And I think that's what made the audiobook so funny to me, is that there were a lot of funny anecdotes and stories about what happened on set in the making of the movie. And you have the people who actually went through these stories telling them to you, which there were points in the audiobook that I was actually laughing out loud, or that I would have to pause it and then replay it for my family members because it was so funny. It was also just really fun to hear all these random facts or details that I wouldn't have known about the movie from behind the scenes. And so after I read the book or listened to the book, I watched the movie, and it felt so different after hearing all of the different funny stories. It was a hilarious book, so it was very entertaining on that level. But I'm a person who tends to really like hearing about the behind the scenes of movies, especially the ones that I love. So I really liked it for that reason too. So those are the 4 books that I would definitely call favorites from last year. They're the ones that were very memorable or very thought-provoking, and I just, out of everything that I read, they really stuck out to me. So I would love to hear your favorite books from last year down below in the comments. And I hope that your new year is going well so far, and I'll see you next time. Bye!